I start the recording. There we go. And just waiting on any stragglers to join in as well. But yeah, first of all, hi everyone. Good evening. Hope you guys are having a wonderful night. If you're just catching the stream, welcome back. And if you're here for fun, cool. If you're here to learn, awesome. If you're here to hang out, doesn't matter really what your intention is with this class. I do think I'll be able to provide you guys with some insights when it comes to draft. A little bit about me, for those of you guys that don't know me, I started playing competitive Pokemon Unite the day that the game launched. I still play the game. This year, I'm not participating competitively. I want to focus a little bit more on coaching and content like this, and potentially, work on some even more exciting projects. Last year, the biggest NA event at NAIC, Pokemon Unite Regionals, my team won the event. And for those of you guys that watched it or have heard of it, a lot of the success that we had in our winning series came down to our better understanding of draft and us basically putting our opponents in a chokehold. Now, draft, when it gets to that level, at the tournament level, is a little bit more complex, and we're not going to go that granular into it. We're going to stay a little bit more surface level, but it is going to be a really good time. Before I get started, I do want to just thank you guys all for making the time to come tonight. I know spending an hour in a Discord server learning about Pokemon Unite isn't the type of thing you might have imagined yourself doing before you signed up, but congratulations. I think you're making a good step if you want to be able to learn more about Unite, or if you're just here for a good time, that's cool too. And I know $15 can be a lot for some people. So yeah, thank you very much. I think we're gonna have a really good time. It's my first time doing one of these in a really long time. So if you do want more of these types of sessions after it's done, let me know if you have any ideas or anything you'd like to see in the future. I'd be happy to put together a presentation. I'm just gonna get this out of the way now. This could not have happened without Metafy. They set up a really cool platform for me to be able to transact and get you guys organized into this Discord server. A lot of the headache was alleviated from my head thanks to them. And I do coaching on their platform as well. So if you ever want one-on-one coaching, you can get my links. It's in my bio. You can send me a DM. I can get you a link there as well. But that's it for that. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, I hope a lot of you have a baseline understanding of what draft works looks like. Hopefully you watched the inderUniversity presentation we did on stream. If you haven't, it's okay. You'll still be able to follow along. But we're going to talk about what's new. What have they added since that presentation? Because there were some changes that were announced. You might not be caught up to speed there. Two, I'm going to give you a list of questions. These questions aren't the be it like end all types of questions, but these are the types of questions that'll help you make better draft decisions, things that are kind of necessary for a team comp. And we'll go through like a value system as well, like which is really important, which might not be as important, but things to keep at the back of your mind. We're going to talk about different types of team compositions, whether it's a death ball style of Pokemon Unite, whether it's split push, score comp, how all of these exist and what picks kind of enable those comps to work, what's really good into them, and just some things for you to keep in mind. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with itemization in Pokemon Unite. How can you leverage your items, both your held items and your battle items, to give you an advantage when it comes to draft? We have 4 sections here, and at the end of every section, I'm going to spoil it a little bit for you guys, we're going to be doing a practice drafting session. So we're going to do 4 of these today. What I'm going to ask is you guys in the Discord stage chat right here, you guys participate along. What we can do is I'm going to pick on the left side. You guys are going to be responsible on the right side. And if we have anyone brave enough to take on the lead, we can give them the crown. You guys can provide your input as well, but we'll let the crowned person do one of the drafts. So if anyone's interested in taking on the lead in the draft, feel free to, type in, say me or whatever in the chat, raise your hand, whatever it might be. I think it'll be a really fun exercise. Remember, I'm not streaming this. This isn't going to be like uploaded to any social media. So if you have like stage fright, you're not going to need to use your voice at all. You can type in the chat. And if you're scared of being judged by a larger audience, that's not going to be the case as well. It's a pretty, you know, the 25, 26 of us that are in here, those are the only eyes that are really going to see this. So you don't need to, if you make bad decisions or whatever, you don't need to worry too much. But if not, we'll do it as a group session. No worries. Cool. So what is new in when it comes to draft? So last season and this, whenever we had draft, each team would nominate one ban, right, before seeing the other team's ban, and both of those would be shown at the same time. Those would be the bans, and then you would go into your picking phase. This was especially annoying because sometimes teams would ban the same thing. You would basically be playing a game of chicken and mouse. Like, is the other team going to ban Zacian? Because if they are, then we need to ban this. You know, a lot of mind games that relied on chance and RNG, but thankfully that's gone now. So now the drafting phase, the way it works is on here, the left side team, they get the first ban. Say they're like, oh, we want to ban Inteleon. Inteleon gets banned. You can see in the top left there. Maybe right side team is like, you know, we're going to ban Dragapult, and you go left and right. You know, maybe Lapras, maybe Mewtwo. Then you have your picks. You know, first pick gets one pick, then you get two. Then you alternate two picks at a time until the right side team gets last pick. So obviously this is an example of a solo queue draft. This is complete garbage, but we're gonna have a little bit more nuance to ours for sure. But cool, with that, we can get started. The other thing about draft, if you haven't heard, you're gonna have to be 1400 master points to even get in a draft game. Everyone in your game is gonna have to be 1400 points. But yeah, that's okay. You might get to 1400. You might already be there. This following seasons might be open to everyone else. We don't know, but cool. Let's do a practice round of draft. Do we have anyone brave enough to take the crown spot? Cool. Gamma, you're down to do it. I'm not gonna ask you to get on voice. You can continue to chat where you are. And guys, all the rest of you in here, Garbo, you can do the next one. We're gonna do 4 of them, so no worries. You don't need to speak, and I want everyone else to provide their input as well. We're gonna do a draft without you guys having any prior knowledge. It's just gonna be for fun. So Gamma is gonna be the one with the final choice, but you guys can give your suggestions as well. You can all be on voice. We'll keep it as is, just so you know, if there's anyone else that wants to do it, they don't feel obligated to get on voice. So I appreciate it, but you're good. Cool. So let's say I'm first pick. I don't want. Also, one other thing, because there's no Miraidon here, right? Because there's no Miraidon, we're gonna say Gengar equals Miraidon. All right. So just remember that Gengar is Miraidon. We're going to draft as if Miraidon exists. But I'm first pick. Let's assume Miraidon is very, very, very broken. And all EX licenses are illegal. So this is how a draft might look next time. No one's going to actually pick Gengar, so we'll call him Miraidon. But I'm first pick, and I want to make sure I can maybe get Miraidon. And you know what? Umbreon's really annoying. There's probably something else I'll end up first picking, so I'll ban Umbreon. What do you guys want to ban? Give us a ban, Gamma. Zacian. All right. One of the EX Pokemon is out. So now I'm thinking, okay, there's Miraidon. Remember, Miraidon equals Gengar. Miraidon's still in the pool, and Mewtwo is still in the pool. If I ban one of them, the other one might get banned. And then I'll have to play into the one that I don't pick. Or I have the opportunity to get rid of both of them. If I get rid of both of them, what do I want to first pick? Well, I can first pick something really strong, which I've already eliminated a counter for. So I'll ban Mewtwo, put the pressure on the other side to see if they want to ban Miraidon, or do they want to give me Miraidon? We'll see. So what are we banning, Gamma? Ban Gengar. Okay. So no Miraidon. So now I don't get access to Miraidon, but I'm happy to take Buzzwole. I've gotten rid of Umbreon. It's a character that's annoying for Buzz to deal with. And let's just say it's current buzz, so it's still really, really strong. We'll give the rain Gamma gets to take their next 2 picks. Leafeon and Clefable. Not bad picks at all. They're both really strong characters. Leafeon and Clefable. Really, really good. Clef, a little bit of a counter to Buzz. Leafeon gives a little bit of trouble in the early game. Not bad at all. Cool. Well, I want to take one of the characters that's really strong into Glaceon or into Leafeon, which is Glace. The reason why Glace is not bad into Leaf and Clef. Clef, you do a lot of damage to it as a, it's like a frontline healer. And then it can match Leafeon's energy in the early game, right? So I'll go ahead and take Glaceon. And, I don't really want to show my hand too much, but I don't need to pick my healer because they've already picked their healer. And you know what's a really good attacker that's still up? We'll take Inteleon. So I've shown all my damage dealers, but they're all really broken ones. All right, chat, Gamma's relying on you. What are you guys looking to pick? So on your side, I would imagine you need a defender, maybe you need an attacker, and maybe some other kind of damage dealer. Crustle's not a bad suggestion. Tree's not a bad. Blastoise is up. Blastoise is a solid character. Need a ranged attacker? Yeah, I would say we definitely need a ranged. We'll let Gamma make the final pick. So Gamma likes Tree. So Tree's locked in. And you've got one more to pick here. I see some good suggestions. Chandelure, Venu. We'll talk about why those and try to remember this point in the draft. I'll talk to you about why those characters might be a little scary, but we can talk about that afterwards. Venu's not a bad pick. Guard's not a bad pick. We're gonna ask for a final pick here, Gamma. What are we locking in? More guard? All right, guard it is. We'll lock in guard. Gardevoir's not bad to pick for sure. I can't find it. Did they remove guard? Guys, do we see it? I'm actually blind. I found it. Next to Sableye. Thank you. Okay, cool. So now I have my 2 last picks. We know I need a healer and a defender. Blissey's by far the best pick. Gives us a counter engage to Leafeon. Gives us sustain for 2 hyper carries. If I unite move either one of these guys, they're gonna get big damage off. So that's looking really good. And then for my final pick, I need a defender. Tree unfortunately got taken away from me. It's between Crustle and Blastoise. But if I'm looking at the enemy team comp, they kind of need a top laner. Or they could run Raw Leafy on top. It's a little bit awkward, but I mean, Blastoise is never really a bad character to have on your team, and it's still up, so we'll go ahead and take Blastoise. And now, right side, you guys in the chat, you have your last pick. How do we want to finalize our draft? We have our healer, we have our defender. If it's Gardevoir in the bot lane, then we need a jungler with either Leaf going top or yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, Gamma, you got the final pick. Don't worry, don't try to think too hard. We have 4 more of these coming. You want to go with Venu? Okay, we'll go with Venu. Venu should be at the top, right? It's the first one. Cool. Let's go ahead and take a screenshot of this just so we don't lose it. When you're doing this, is there a way to select a role and only use that role? I would recommend having Unite DB open, and then you can filter by role here. That site doesn't have it, but yeah, if you do need a little bit of help, this is how I would do that. Okay, so let's rate this draft a little bit. I would say definitely not a bad draft from the right side. And we're gonna go. You guys are gonna have a little bit more context later on as well. To help self-evaluate these drafts as well, right? But right away we have some issues, right, on the right side. one of the issues is that our bottom lane is going to be Tree Gardevoir or Tree Venusaur, right? So our bottom lane is going to struggle a lot in terms of last hitting. We also have to either send one of our other ranged top if our Leafeon wants to one buff out of the jungle, or we need to send raw Leafeon top, right? My top lane is Blissey Blastoise, right? Or Blissey Buzzwole, sorry. With Buzzwole in the top lane, I don't think there's enough to stop the Buzz from scaling pretty hard. My Glaceon's gonna dominate the front line. It will be a little scary into the long range characters, agreed. But my Blissey's gonna have some big soft boileds this game, and then you still have to get through my Inteleon. We have good peeling from Blast. I have really strong early game. I have really strong last hitting on objectives. I have really strong Unite moves. Like everything about left side comp is really, really broken. Right side's not bad. Foundationally, we've built a solid comp. But our early game is very weak. And I think that's the biggest weakness of the draft. I would give it a solid, 7 out of 10. I don't think it's a bad draft. I would say my draft is quite good though. And you can see what happens in first pick, right? When you give up Buzzwole, there's going to be some issues, but we'll talk about how to get to better situations and how to make a little bit better choices here. So good run. Can we, if you guys are subbed to me on Twitch and you have the emote, or if not, can we get some claps in the chat for Gamma for stepping up? Thank you, Gamma. I know it's not easy being in the hot seat, so thank you. Cool. Let's go back to here. So now, knowing all this, how do we approach the banning and the picking phase? So for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to refer to Team A as a team that's on the left side or the team that has first pick, and Team B as the team that has second pick or on the right side, okay? A lot of these are very similar, but you want to centralize your draft around power picks, okay? So if you can imagine a tier list, and here's the last tier list that I've made, and I'll link this in the chat just so you have it. There we go. The things that are at the top of the tier list, and what we can say we include EX Pokemon, those are your power picks, right? So you want to try to imagine you're fighting over these power picks, right? And you want to set up your bans in a way that you'll be left with enough power picks at the end of it, right? So if your team is the first team to ban, right? And there's like a de facto strong character in the game, you should always ban it. Or sorry, you should always never ban it, right? So in our case, right, in that draft that we just did, Miraidon is like this de facto character that we're going to assume is a strong one, represented by Gengar. We went with Zacian first, man. I would have immediately, as the second pick side, looked to ban Miraidon. As the first pick side, make sure we don't ban Miraidon. From the first pick side, what we're looking to do is think of the things that you want to play and what's going to be like a kind of annoying or counter pick to that, right? So in the back of my mind, at the start of that draft that we had here, I already knew I was gunning for Buzzwole. I knew that the EX Pokemon were probably going to get picked and banned out, and I wanted to have a strong Buzzwole game. You know what's really annoying for Buzz and a lot of characters out there? Umbreon. So if I know I'm going to pick Buzzwole, I can go ahead and remove Umbreon, have a good Buzzwole game, and then not give the opportunity to give up Umbreon, right? If you can look at the draft, I know that there's a chance that 3 EX Pokemon get eliminated, right? So if 3 EX Pokemon are gone, I'm going to get Buzz. I don't want to give up Umbreon. So that's why I banned that. But the mistake that I think you guys made is this one right here. Team B ban one. So you guys were Team B, your first ban. Is there a power pick in the meta? Ban it, right? You don't want to waste time banning something else and then being forced into banning the really, really strong pick. So the power pick here is Miraidon, right? Your first ban, when your second pick, right? When there's 2 bans, so I'll slow down a little bit because I don't want to be too confusing, right? If your first ban as the second pick side, should be the de facto strong character in the game. You know you don't want to give that character up. You know the other team has no incentive to ban it, right? The first thing you guys should have banned was Miraidon. The first thing you should ban is Miraidon. The first thing we ended up banning was Zacian. Because if you don't ban it, it gives too much power to the first pick side, because now I get to dictate the direction of the draft. Do I ban Mewtwo and force you to ban Miraidon? And now I get to get the best character in the game that I already set up Buzzwole? What if I don't ban Mewtwo, right? If I don't ban Mewtwo, now you have to make the choice. Are you happy to play into Miraidon with just Mewtwo Buzzwole as compensation? Maybe that's okay, but the power, you've given me that power and you don't want to give up that kind of power. So in conclusion, if there's a really, really strong character and you're the first ban from second pick, just ban it. Don't try to think about it. These other things I think are pretty inconsequential. If they've already banned it, maybe you can ban, maybe you can be a little bit more selfish with your ban. But some of the things I've written here, this is a lot more for solo queue and trio and duo as well, right? If you're bored of seeing something in your games, right, ban Clefable. You just don't want to play against Clefable anymore. We could just ban it. Is there someone on your team that's a one trick? Say you have like, you know, someone, your guy's like just a really good tree player, right? Maybe we want to lean the draft towards making it a good tree game. How do you make it a good tree game? Maybe you want to have Inteleon paired with it so you have a really strong last hitting tool in the game. And maybe we ban something like Buzzwole from first pick and we play around our characters. But anyways, we move on to the second ban. Is there still a power pick up in this spot right here? When you're first pick and it's your second ban. So in our case, yes, there was a power pick up, right? We're going to go ahead and ban it, force the other team to ban that, and then we get to secure our Buzzwole the way that I did, right? So that's one way to look at it. This ban right here that you have, your second ban from the first pick side, it only matters if the enemy team didn't follow this skeleton of the draft, right? If they haven't banned Miraidon yet, maybe we ban the other EX Pokemon, force them to ban Miraidon here. But the most important ban in all of the bans is Team B's, so second picks, second ban, right? This is the point here, is you have to analyze what's the strongest character left in the pool, right? Is there a really strong EX Pokemon? If not, is there still Buzzwole left in the pool? This is where you get the power, right? Second picks, second ban is a huge advantage to them as long as they played their first ban correctly, right? So it's a really good example that we got here, right? Had we banned Miraidon with our first ban from second pick, if you guys had banned Miraidon, now you would put the agency on me to either ban Mewtwo or ban Buzzwole, because I might give up the other one. And now if I ban one of them, you can ban the other one, and you can either pick one, you can trade some of them, but at least all the really strong characters have been picked. I have been banned away. And then I have this little flow chart here, right? You want to try to count how many of these like power picks are left in the game. And the skill of drafting, right? This is your foundation, right? This I can convey to you and you can learn it and you can remember it going forward. This will apply to every meta every time in the future. The skill and the agency you have is identifying what are these power picks, right? Right now, I can tell you, if nothing were to get changed, Buzz, Clef, Umbreon, probably all the EX Pokemon minus Zacian, and then maybe Glaceon are like the power picks in this meta, right? But if there's one power pickup, you ban it, right? Because the first pick's just going to be able to pick it right away. If there's two up, right? Now, this is where it's really important, right? So if I banned Umbreon, you ban Miraidon, let's say I choose to not ban Mewtwo, and I go and ban Glaceon, right? And let's say the power picks are the EX Pokemon here, right? If you were to ban one of the EX Pokemon here, you're guaranteeing the other team gets one without you getting any in compensation, right? So that's why I have here, if there's two, you ban neither, do not ban either, right? Because in this situation, there's two EX Pokemon up. So, you know, look to ban a non-EX really strong Pokemon, maybe Leafeon, right? Now, enemy team might get Mewtwo, but at least now you get to go Zacian +1 immediately, right? Had you banned Zacian, they get Mewtwo and you get nothing in return. Now, if there's three really strong Pokemon up, like three equivalently strong Pokemon up, you have a choice to make. You can either ban one of them, ban like the really strong one, give them one, trade for one, or again, ban neither, let them have the one they want to have, and then you get two of them on your pick, right? That's what you really want to think about. It's like, what can you really take advantage to get on your 1-2 there? The bans are not blind anymore. They go left, right. No blind bans anymore. When Miraidon releases, isn't there a possibility that everyone may ban it repeatedly and we never get to play them on? Possibly, but I don't think that'll happen every game. I can guarantee you that it's not going to be an occurrence every game, but it's going to happen a lot. And that's how draft works in other games, guys. And sometimes you, like when last year Zacian was legal for ACL, I think there was 39 games that got played in ACL. It was either 38 out of 39 or 39 out of 39 where it was banned every game, right? So that's gonna happen for sure. But cool. Let's do another run of our practice draft here. So I know we had a volunteer earlier. I forget who it was, but does anyone want to take over the crown? You can still rely on everyone else for help, but I think it was Garbo, right? Garbo, cool. You're still comfortable going with it? You're going to be second pick again. So I'm going to be on the left. You're going to be on the right. This time, right? The only difference this time is I'm going to tell you ahead of time that hypothetically my team, I have really good speedster players on my team, you know? That's what they like to play. So I'm going to give you like a style that my team likes to play, and I'm going to draft around it. You can draft alongside your peers as you wish, but that's how we're going to do it, okay? So knowing I have a lot of speedster players, I'm just going to go ahead and ban Slowbro, right? Slowbro is the best speedster counter in the game. I'm just going to take it off the pool right away. That's how I'm approaching it. Now, based on what we talked about, what do you guys think your first ban should be here? There's one right answer. Miraidon. Gengar, aka Miraidon, yeah. So remember, if you don't ban it here, you know you're going to be forced to ban it anyways. I know I said we're really good at speedsters, right? But if there's a character that's dominant, right? We're assuming that Miraidon's going to be like a god. It's still going to be the character you ban. So yeah. This is the right ban. This is what I want you guys to ban as well. Okay, cool. So it comes back to me. Now it's up to me. Do I want there to be no EX Pokemon in the game, or do I want both EXs to be up? You know what? I'm down to see what happens if I ban Umbreon. So I'm going to go ahead and get Umbreon. My guys generally like to play speedsters. They don't have to, but that's another really big speedster counter. So I'm going to get rid of Umbreon right away. Now it's your turn to ban. What are we banning, Garbo? Last ban here. Remember, there's Zacian and Mewtwo. Both are still in the pool. Mewtwo. So if you ban Mewtwo, you're going to give me Zacian and not have a EX for yourself. But that's up to you. Zoroark, you want to try to counter ban me before I've even picked my speedsters? Remember, just because you know there's one tricks or people that lean towards one style doesn't mean they necessarily have to play that. But what's the call, Garbo? You got to make your final call for for the squad. Give me one Pokemon. Tell me what we're banning. A lot of good suggestions. Banning Clef. All right, Clef has been banned. Cool. So now 2 EX Pokemon are up. Remember, teams can have as many EXs as they want. But we do need to pick an EX. I'm happy to take Mewtwo. I think Mewtwo is a better EX, but we'll see. Cool. Your turn to pick. And remember, try to think about good lanes. That's something I've talked about on stream a lot. Remember, you always want to be thinking about how you're going to be laning your characters as well. But yeah, we're going to Garbo. We have a lot of good suggestions. Buzz. Remember, now that Mewtwo's been picked, the other Mewtwo is not available. And if you need a reference of a tier list, here's a tier list. Just is missing the EX Pokemon, so just remember those. Did we get a lock-in from Garbo? I don't see one. Buzz, definitely. Okay. So Buzz, definitely. There's your first pick. Now you got to pick one more. Buzz and Blastoise is where you're locking in. Okay. Buzz, Blast. Now remember, you can have as many EX Pokemon as you want. And if you're gonna go Buzz and Blast, you are gonna give up Zacian. So fundamentally, there's no reason for me not to take Zacian. So now I have 2 EX Pokemon. Clefable's banned out. I want to have a supporter that can really balance these guys out. Blissey is just by far the best thing here. So I'm going to lock in Blissey. All right, you got 2 more picks to go, Garbo. So some things you can keep in mind. I've already picked my healer. So that's something you'd want to keep in mind. Hoopa, okay. I think I see a lot of people say, hey, you shouldn't pick your support if the other team's already picked it. I think this is a fine time to pick your support. It's okay. Synergizes decently well with these as your frontliners, but remember, we were putting Blastoise in the tank role here, so it's going to be Buzzwole top. And waiting on Garbo's last pick. Glace? Okay, so we'll lock in the Glaceon. Not a bad character to have on your team for sure. Now, cool. I need to pick a defender for myself, and I need another, I need like an attacker or something like that. So, defender that I want to pick here, Umbreon spanned out. I probably want something that can knock things out of portals, because Hoopa can be kind of annoying for that. I want something that can adequately counter this Glaceon. Something to deal with Buzz. Crustle looks like a solid pick. You can't counter with Umbreon Span. You already have your tank locked in. So Crustle just seems like a really good pick for me here. And now I need something in the attacker role. I did mention that we wanted to play some speedsters. My guys are big speedster players, and I won't deprive them of picking a speedster here. So we'll put Leafeon in our bot lane. I picked Mewtwo Y. It's Mewtwo Y, not X. And yeah, this is my comp. We're speedster players. One of my speedsters is gonna have to be Zacian, and we got a Mewtwo Y on the back of it as well. But yeah, Garbo, let's get your last pick here. So you want Glaceon mid. You're gonna have Buzz Hoopa top. Blastoise is your defender. Who's gonna join Blastoise in the bottom lane here? Intel? Okay, cool. So let's lock in Inteleon. Let's get a screenshot of this as well, so you can just save that. Now, how do you guys feel about this draft? I'm looking at it now. Constructively, how do you got? Which team would you rather be on? Would you rather be on this left side team or the right side team? I think personally, I'd rather be on the left side team. We'd all rather be left, right? Now, here's the thing. there was a pivotal mistake I think we made in the draft. Maybe we can say Zacian might not be as good. And maybe Zacian isn't that good. But it's still gonna be demonic. It might end up getting buffed as well, but if you look at its stats, it's still just a crazy statted Pokemon. But maybe it's not that good, right? Maybe it's not that good. You know, it still has. Oh, I didn't sort it by HP. Where is Zacian? There you go. Still a beast, you know, has tank supporter level of HP at 13. It's still really high statted Pokemon. You know, I think it's still going to be a good Pokemon, but maybe it's not that good, right? Now, if your thought process is that you don't want to, you think Zacian's not that good of a Pokemon, right? If you're like, Zacian's not that good, then you should ban Mewtwo, because Mewtwo for sure is a crazy strong Pokemon, right? So that's how you want to look at it. Like, okay, maybe you're thinking it doesn't matter if they get both EXs. Why? Then maybe you should ban the stronger EX away. Another thing that I think we did, and with us banning Clef here, we also deprived ourselves of being able to pick Clefable in that 1-2 spot, right? Buzz Blast, really, really strong thing to consider, not bad, but you're going up against 2 EX Pokemon. I have the best backline supporter that can support them as well, especially with Clef being banned. My Crustle counters both of your ranged Pokemon and your supporter, and it's pretty hard to kill for your team as well. And we're just, my team just runs at this team, and Hoopa, and this is something that we'll talk about as well, Hoopa as a supporter introduces like this new element to draft where you have a healer, but you have the only healer in the game that doesn't have any immediate defensive pressure, you know? If your team, if your backline carry, if my Mewtwo gets dove, right? Like say your Buzz just guns for my Mewtwo, I can Blissey ult it. Clefable can unite, Buddy Barrier unite it. Comfy, you know, unite, big heal right afterwards, right? Eldegoss can run Buddy, or if not Buddy, instant way to heal your team. Hoopa, right? Hoopa doesn't have any defensive capabilities, right? So when you're under, when you know you're playing into something like a speedster comp, or you see someone pick something like Zacian, something like Leafeon, something like Dodrio, something like Zoroark, Hoopa is a character you have to be very, very careful with, right? Let me give you guys a little story. Going into Ohio at NAIC last year, Hoopa was the character everyone thought was the strongest support in the game. I even on stage baited everyone because they interviewed me and they kept letting me have Hoopa throughout the early game of the tournament. And I was like, Hoopa's just that good, right? And then into our series against LG, they kept going Hoopa, and we're like, okay, this is a speedster meta right now. You pick Hoopa, what are you going to do to Zoroark Comfy, right? If you have a Blissey, you can defensively unite it. If you have a Clefable, you can defensively unite it, right? But Hoopa doesn't have the defensive pressure. So very, very scary to be Hoopa in that spot. Overall, I think you did a decent job. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. I think if this was a non-EX format, you picked all the really good characters and you picked a broken draft. But with EX Pokemon introduced, with the bans that I had, you kind of fell into a trap here, right? And this is something you want to keep in mind. Like, I gave you the information that we're going to lead towards speedsters. I banned all the speedster counters, but the things that counter speedsters also counter the divey type of characters, right? So if I'm in your situation here, where you're like, oh my god, the enemy team is banning Bro, they're banning Umbreon, in my mind, I'm looking to pick a defensive support right away. Now, if these were the bans and I were to redo this is something no one suggested, but I think the absolutely correct call when you've put yourself in this situation, our bans were Slowbro, Miraidon, Umbreon, and what did we ban? Clefable. If you're ever in a spot where a defensive support like this is banned out, I go Mewtwo Y. The correct thing, the best 1-2 in my opinion here, is Blissization. The reason is Clefable's already out of the game, right? A lot of the really good speedster counters are already out, right? Blissey plus Zation, Blissey plus anything that it can Blissey ult is really, really strong. And now, what supporters does left side team have access to? They can be put on Eldegoss, Comfy, or Hoopa, right? If they end up going Hoopa, we can do that thing where I said we go speedsters, we dive at them, we make their life a living hell. They have no defensive pressure. There's no Clefable to protect them. If they want to go Comfy, they're going to need a Comfy carry to really make use of that. And Eldegoss would kind of round it out, right? So that's what I would keep in mind. Other thing is really strong range characters, really, really good range characters are complemented by Clefable and Blissey and Eldegoss to a degree, right? Range characters don't do that well with Hoopa because Hoopa doesn't really reset them. It doesn't really interact very well, right? So by picking Blissey here, not only do you give your team the pink blob support advantage, right, in this like EX Pokemon, right, meta, but you also deny them from getting Blissey here. So by far, I think this would have been something really, really strong you could pick. The draft can go in 100 different ways from this spot, but if Clefable is banned, you really want to, and if things like Umbreon and Bro are banned, Blissey just jumps up in priority. So something to keep in mind. If Clefable wasn't banned, you could go like Zacian, Glaceon, you could go Zacian, you could go Zacian anything. If you don't believe in Zacian, I think maybe you would approach the draft differently, but you might not necessarily look to pick Blissey that early. Is there a good website to see each month's counters? No, that's the skill in Pokemon Unite. You can look at Unite API, but I'll tell you, it's not going to be very reliable. I plan on making some future content where we go roll by roll and we talk about counters and things like that. And that will be on my YouTube channel or Twitch. But that's just going to come from experience. There's got to be some skill in the game, right? And that's where the skill and strategy comes in. But cool, I think good job. Can we get some claps in the chat for Garbo? I know that was really tough. Being in the hot seat's not easy, guys. Trust me. I've had 10,000 maybe draft scenarios that I've done either in Pokemon or in previous games. I do this with my eyes closed. Garbo, I know that was tough, so really good job. I think you picked some good characters, and if not for EX Pokemon, that would have been kind of, you would have had a great draft. But cool, let's keep going. So, we talked about what a balanced composition might look like in a previous inderUniversity. So this is a slide from there. This should be mostly common knowledge, but as a refresher, each team, you want to try to make sure they have 2 EXP shares per side. So the last 2 drafts, you guys had a balanced team composition. So really good job. Both Gamma, Garbo, and everyone helping along. You guys formed what I would consider a balanced team composition. So you guys are already past this part of the step, you know? I think maybe a big issue might have been, especially with our first draft, is making sure you have a good combination of early and late game characters, right? So if you're going to pick, right, what we had in our first draft was Gardevoir and Venusaur as our attackers, right? Both characters that are 3-stage evolutions. They get their first one at 5. They're really weak in the early game. With those types of attackers, you want to complement them with a defender that's strong out the gate. You know, you can't afford to go a defender that also needs to scale. So that's where I said that Tree, Gardevoir, Venu was a bit of a scary core to have. You can definitely make it work, and you might see comps like that get played. But from a foundational perspective, that's a mistake, right? You want to have something in the early game. I would go as far to say that Snorlax, a character that's not regarded as high as Tree, would be a better pick to pair with Guard and Venu than Tree would be. Now, if your team had an Inteleon or an Espeon or something really good in the early game, or even a Pikachu, you can definitely look to pick different tanks like that. But just something to keep in mind, you want to make sure you balance out your early, mid game, and late game kind of comps. And how do you know something's good in the early game or late game? Best way, I think, to visualize it is evolution Pokemon tend to be better. they're not good early game characters, and one stage evolution, things that evolve at level 4 or don't need to evolve at all, those are good early game. So all the EVs are good early game. You know, Buzzswole doesn't need to evolve. Even Lucario, Snorlax in the defender position. Lapras is a decent early game, though it's been nerfed. Crustle's a 2-stage at 4. Blastoise might be the exception to that. Blastoise is just always good, but that's why Blastoise is broken. But yeah, other than that, I think you guys did a great job. But cool. Let's think about some questions that you want to ask yourself during draft. So some of these you guys are already doing a great job of. But the main thing, right, is you want to try to visualize how are we approaching this draft, right? You saw that in the second one that I did, I gave you guys the insight that my team is very good at playing speedsters, right? So with that knowledge, I was like, okay, what counters speedsters, right? I'm not thinking on a per Pokemon level necessarily. I'm not thinking what counters Zoroark, what counters Jojo. I'm mostly just thinking what counters particular roles. So speedsters, Umbreon, and Slowbro. I banned those out. It's really easy from first pick. I banned them out. But so try to have like an overall strategy at the back of your mind. And sometimes your strategy can just be, oh, I want to pick EX Pokemon and we want to build around EX Pokemon. That's good too. How many mons and types would I recommend knowing how to play well? That's a really good question. I'll answer that right now, actually. So I would say in the official roles that you have here, if you can play one of each right here, you're already doing better than probably like 80% of Pokemon Unite players. If you can do 2 of each, even better. 3 of each, you don't need any more at that point, right? Now, if you want to get even more granular, I did have this prepared. We don't have this in the presentation, but I'll show you guys. This is something I have planned for a future video, but you guys are here. I'll give you early access to a future inderUniversity episode, right? These are the mental archetypes that I have when I'm thinking about the game, right? So there's 2 major categories. We have non-damage dealers and damage dealers. The non-damage dealers, these are defenders and supporters, right? Very simple. I call them tank, I call them healer. Reason I call them tank and healer is because Mr. Mime is a supporter, more of a tank. Reason I call it healer is because Sableye is a supporter, but doesn't heal you. Umbreon is a defender, but can go in the healer category. And then utility, right now this is just Sableye. Maybe you could put like Espeon and Pikachu as like, you know, maybe the quarterback, if you guys know what I'm talking about. These are all XP share users. And maybe Hoopa is a little bit in there as well, right? So you want to have 2 of these on each team. And if you can play at least 1 or 2 tanks and 1 or 2 healers, you're good, right? And then from the damage dealer side, these have 2 big subcategories, right? You have your ranged and your melee, right? And if you can play 1 of each of these, you're good, right? Snipers, these are like your Venusaur solar beams and your Inteleon snipe shots, your Mews, your Desies, right? So if you can play 1 sniper, you're good. If you can play 1 mage, mage is just any special attack character that exists in like a mid-range. So like Gardevoir, Alolan Ninetales, Pikachu. You can play 1 of those. Delphox, maybe you're good. And then ADC, this one's in this meta isn't even important. But this is like your Dragapult, your auto attack based characters. Your bruisers, your bruisers. So melee characters, these are your all-rounders, some of your speedsters. Bruisers, this is traditionally your all-rounder. But some all-rounders can be more assassin-like Water Bear when Water Bear is good. E-Speed Lucario, Mimikyu, right? These are characters that are good at getting to the back line. Their speedsters are the ones like assassins good at getting to your back line. And then bruisers or all-rounders, these are like tanky, bulky, frontliney types of mons, right? So of these categories, right, if you can have at least 1 to 2 ready for draft, right, you should be good, right? What you don't want is like, say you're like, oh, I can play 5 characters, but the 5 characters I can play are like Delphox, Espeon, Gardevoir, Glaceon, Alolan Ninetales, right? These are all very similar right? These are all your typical mage characters. They have nuances in between them, but they kind of work all the same, right? They exist in that like middle range. So going back to like, what can you ask yourself during draft, right? Do you have a good combination of melee or range, right? And if you want to go even more granular, are we fulfilling enough of these archetypes, right? And if you remember, I've explained this concept before in terms of rock, paper, scissors, right? Where speedsters are good into attackers are good into all-rounders are good into speedsters, right? Do we have enough of a balance? Do we have enough different types of Pokemon that we're not bottlenecking ourselves into a counter, right? If we're gonna go double speedster, we really got to make sure we have another range character, or we're really all in into this melee type of play style. Other than broken, what would I call Glaceon? So in that roles that I gave you here, it's definitely arranged. What would you guys say? Where would you guys say Glaceon is? Is Glaceon a sniper, a mage, or an ADC? It's a mage. It's a mage, which has some ADC qualities to it, for sure. Its playstyle plays like a hybrid of both, but I would put it in that mage mid-range kind of quality, for sure. You guys got that right. Nice. What if we play the Pokemon that are considered not ideal? You like to play Mamo and Machamp. Should we try and learn the better characters? I would say yes. Try to, widen your horizon, but make it work, If your team is lacking in the non-damage shielder category, say you already have 3 of these picked, and your team needs a tank, and you're good on Mamo as tank, play Mamo, right? You don't need to play the best one in each role. Just try to fulfill some of these kinds of archetypes, right? And you can see that there's more than 5 here, so you can't get one of each in every comp, but you want to just try to keep in mind what you can check off, right? And there's small nuances to this, right? Snipers are really good into mages because they can outrange them, but snipers are much weaker into melees than mages are, because mages, like Pikachu has full tackle, A9 has blizzard, right? Mages tend to have more control. So you want to try to think about what the other team has, what you have, and how you can work around it. But yeah, what are other questions we can ask ourselves, right? Do we have good last hitting for objectives? Do we have good damage for the objectives? Not all of these are mandatory ones, but these are things you want to think about, right? You want to try to have in the back of your mind. We talked about strong lanes. Do we have the tools to KO their defenders, attackers, or speedsters? This is another one, and I don't want to lose scope of what we're doing here, so I don't want to get too specific. But I'll give you an example that might happen a lot in your Pokemon games, right? If you've ever played a lot of solo queue or duo or trio or whatever, you might have games where you're like, man, the enemy team Slowbro is so impossible to kill. Goodra is so impossible to kill, right? And you need to always make sure you have tools to deal with the enemy tanks and the enemy damage healers, right? So if your team has something like Gardevoir, Sylveon, you're going to be fine into Slowbro, right? You have this consistent damage that can take them down. But if you end up picking like Talonflame, Meowscarada, and then like Dragonite as your third guy, you're not going to have the damage to take down things like Slowbro and Goodra, right? So try to make sure that you're not bottlenecking yourself into playing into specific types of roles. And then another big thing is anti-heal. Every comp needs anti-heal. It's a mandatory in my opinion, but against some comps, you really, really, really need it. The drafts that we played out, every team had a viable anti-healer, so it's not a big deal. But that's something you always got to keep in mind. Wouldn't you say knowing your team's strengths and weaknesses is really important for draft? For sure. In competitive, you're playing. You guys ever heard the saying in poker, you don't play the cards, you play the man, right? That's how you're playing competitive draft, right? I'm not banning based on like when it's like the finals of a big tournament, right? Everything about the meta is thrown out the door, and we play to my team, to the teams, right? So at NAIC, we first banned Comfy when Comfy wasn't even a meta pick. Why? Because it fit the draft and the plan that we had. When you're playing in solo queue and you're laddering, you're not gonna have that kind of intel into the other team. So it can be a little bit, that doesn't really apply there that much. Okay, so I know there's a lot of questions. Keep those questions. I do want to make sure that we fit all the content that we have planned within the time frame that we have. So we're gonna skip the practice session here, and I want to go over to just the next thing that we're talking about. I know we only have 5 minutes left, guys, so if you do have to leave at the top of the hour, you're able to leave silently, and that's cool. If you're able to stay, I'm gonna stay until we finish everything, and then the recording will be up as well. So you'll have access to the recording if you do need to end up leave. So it's gonna go over an hour. I'm really passionate about the game. I talk a lot. I'm sorry, this just happened. But cool. I want to talk about types of team compositions and how to counter it, right? And I have one very specific type of team composition in mind. And I think this is the one that teams, if you don't ban Clefable, are going to be the ones you have to deal with, that you're going to hate dealing with the most. So let's look at a practice draft again. I'm going to ban all the EXs out. And let's just say Umbreon is banned, right? And it's this Clefable kind of team composition, right? So let's say Clefable, we're not too worried about what the picks are. I just want to give you like an example. Let's go Petal Dance Venusaur here, right? And let's just say let's say you went Hoopa and you have your Garchomp or something. Doesn't matter, right? So when you're playing into this death ball kind of this playstyle, right? And you're stuck playing into just like a Clefable running at you, how are you supposed to address this in the draft, right? This is something that happens a lot. And funny enough, yesterday in solo queue, this is exactly what I found myself having to deal with as well. I just want you guys to look at how this ends up going. Just look at the enemy team comp real quick. So they have, back that up a little bit. The enemy team comp is Umbreon, Clefable, Petal Dance Venusaur, and an Outrage Dragonite, right? All they're doing is they have 5 of them stand on top of your heads and they just run at you endlessly, right? And an A9, right? And an A9, which, can be really annoying. But look, they just keep running at us. And in the interest of time, let's just speed that up a little bit. But just look at how nasty this is, right? They're just standing 5 on top of everyone's heads. And our comp, honestly, cannot deal with this. Hoopa, as I said, doesn't have enough defensive properties to really do anything about this. You need to basically have just either drafted better or win your early game by being better players, right? Which is kind of hard when these characters are not bad in the early game. But look, they're just impossible to kill. Right, you get the idea. They're just going to fully run at us. Even when I finally get the opportunity to use my Unite move here, they just stand on top of my portal and they're just running. There's nothing we can do, right? So it's really, really annoying. Next game, right? And I see Terry already mentioned it. I don't know I'm playing against them here, but I'm just like, I'm really annoyed. I don't want that to ever happen to me again. I'm going to play Delphox. Delphox, the only character in the game, built-in anti-heal, and can go extra anti-heal on top of it, right? And now the other team has a really broken draft still. They have Umbreon, Clefable, we have Buzz, but I've leveraged my understanding of the team comps to put us at an advantage here. And now the things that they were trying to do before, right, where they stand on top of their head and they play 4 people on their pad, they can't do that anymore, right? We have something like Delphox, we have an answer to it. So even the most broken things in the game, you can find different types of counter picks for, right? Now, I can't go over every type of composition that exists, right? But things that I want you guys to keep in mind is try to use your losing experiences as an opportunity to learn, right? And sometimes you might not come up with the absolute best idea, right? It's hard, but you can come up with some kind of idea, right? So for example, if you're playing into like a score comp kind of game, right? Where the other team has picked, let's go ahead and just get these bands out of the way. Maybe they've picked like, I don't know, like Greedent, Sableye. Like they just don't care. They're gonna first pick Sableye. You're gonna pick all the strong characters that you want to pick. Oh, we're gonna get Leafeon, we're gonna Inteleon, we're gonna get Buzzwole, right? And they just keep going score comp, right? They don't care. We're gonna go Greedent. We're gonna make sure that we have Tyranitar, right? Now, you could, right, in this position, right, you could approach the draft from like a normal perspective, like we're just gonna play the meta and we're just gonna play better than them. But I think it's a good opportunity at this point to start thinking about, okay, we need to maybe have better answers to what they're gonna bring. Now, one of the things I can tell you from experience, right, is score comp doesn't really care about your team fight. They're gonna run around and do whatever they want. So you need characters that have a lot of agency, that can do a lot on their own. So if I'm in this spot, right, Clefable is up. We could pick Clefable, really, really good support. But does a Clefable do anything if there's a Sableye and a Greedent running around and scoring? Not really, right? I want to have every character have agency, right? Eld, perfect, exactly. I would rate Eldegoss higher into what the enemy team is playing than I would Clef, because I go Eld, right? And now I have a muscle band. I can chase down these melee guys that are trying to score. I can actually break a score shield, right? If some of these guys have score shields, I have a lot of good answers to that, right? So my support's taken care of. Now, tank, we need a defender. Tree, we could maybe pick Tree. There's a very particular tank that excels in these types of situations. Snorlax isn't the bad one. Snorlax is definitely a decent one. Block can present some help in terms of countering scoring here. Stealth Rock Crustle, it's okay, but if they all stand on the pad with score shields, those are going to go in. Mr. Mime, right? That's the pick that I'm looking for. Mr. Mime, you leave this guy alone in a lane, right? He has barriers to constantly interrupt every score if they don't have score shields. He wins every piece of farm by himself. If they do want to ever take a team fight, it's not like your Unite move is that bad. And the suggestions you guys gave are not bad at all, right? But in this situation, Mime is just as good, if not better, than some of the more conventional picks, right? And let's say they round out their draft. Let's see. What's left that these guys might want to pick? They might go like Dragon Knight. They might want to just flip it. Maybe Dodrio, maybe something like that. Whatever. Maybe it's a Crustle, whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? Now we have one spot left. We need to pick an attacker, probably, maybe a speedster. But again, we want something that has a lot of really good agency. The best attacker in the game is Glaceon. But do we want to be Glaceon? Not really, right? Yeah, I think Mew would be a really good pick. I had Pikachu in mind. I think maybe Mew is even better, right? I like Mew. Mew's really hard to invade. I think Pikachu was what I might have picked, but maybe Mew's even better. But what I'm trying to explain here, guys, is that sometimes the best pick that you have, right, the best theoretical meta pick, right, according to like a tier list, isn't going to be the best pick. Like Glaceon was up there. You know, Leafeon was up. All these attackers I have rated really high. Candle, Venu, none of those would be good because they're not really good on their own, right? We need some kind of lockdown. We need some kind of agency. We need to be good at defending our buffs if they try to invade them. So yeah, Mew's a really good pick. And that's, in draft, you need to try to key in and realize what's happening in the draft, whether it's with what the other team bans. In that example draft that we did initially, where I banned Umbreon and Slowbro, you want to try to key in what's happening there. Or if the enemy team is going something like score comp, if they're going really death bally with Clefable, right? The moment you can identify what's the linchpin to their draft, right, the sooner you can start picking around that. Now, on ladder, people aren't going to draft with a plan, right? They're going to draft very, very random things. So that's where the more knowledge you have on individual characters, the better it's going to serve you, right? The easiest thing I can say is when you're picking around unknowns like the other team and your own team, is never let yourself fall into a trap where you have characters that require support and then you pick more characters that need support, right? When I say that, characters that need support, Tree's a character, he needs a little bit of support, right? Metagross, Tyranitar, right? These are the types of characters that need help. When I say support, I don't literally mean a supporter, but they need something to get off the ground running, right? So if your team has a lot of those types of characters, consider picking things that are a little bit more independent. Maybe an Evolution, maybe Mew if you need an attacker, maybe even Snorlax or Lapras as your defenders. Whatever it might be, try to balance those two things out. And if it's the reverse, right? Say your team has gone ahead and you're playing ladder, so people are going to do whatever they want, right? Say they pick Snorlax and say we pick like Snorlax and Teleon. Okay, now this is a good opportunity where we can leverage maybe something that's a lot better with some support, right? And you try to figure out, okay, what's really good here? Maybe that's a game where the other team doesn't have answers to Metagross and we pick Metagross, right? These things I can't teach you, right? Can't teach you in an hour or hour and a half, but with experience and with you thinking about the game in this way, I'm confident that you guys can come to these conclusions on your own. It's more about counterplay than just picking meta choices. Yeah, I would say you want to do both, right? I think in my experience, when I've seen people struggle with draft, is they reach one of two extremes, right? They either become too meta slaves, right? And that's where you have instances where the enemy team has a theoretically really strong composition, but you failed to address individual matchups. Maybe your lanes are weaker because the other team decided to pick things that are stronger in lanes. An easy example I can give you of that is the snipers in the game, like Inteleon and Decidueye. They're really strong characters and really strong together, but it's very hard for a Desi and Inteleon to deal with something like a Zoroark Comfey, right? If Zoro Comfey's on the map, it's not, Inteleon and Desi don't have the tools to deal with it, right? Now, they might be at some point in the meta the strongest characters in the game, but you might want to round out instead of having Inteleon and Decidueye, maybe instead of Decidueye, we could pick a weaker attacker, right? But something that can deal with them better. Like I might prefer to have Pikachu so we can Volt Tackle. These are just examples that I'm giving you, but that's how you want to try to shape your mind when you're thinking about draft, is not what's the best Pokemon in the game and can I pick it, but what can fit my comp while also being adequate into the other team's comp. But yeah, look, we can go on for hours about particular counter matchups and whatnot. My goal today is to give you guys the tools to be able to start thinking about the game in this way, right? What people end up doing when they play competitive games like Pokemon Unite is they become very attached to the meta, but only because they're doing it from like a reactionary perspective. Like, oh my God, Buzzwole is so OP, I need to pick Buzzwole. Oh my God, Umbreon is so OP, I need to pick Umbreon, right? But if you start to think about the game, right? Delphox, not a character people pick a lot, but in that game where I switched it up and I went Delphox over whatever my team wanted to pick, we end up dominating this game, right? Just for reference, we get to the Rayquaza fight, right? And if we have any other character that's not Delphox or a mage type of Delphox, right? So we could have A9 would have been okay here, Gardevoir, right? Our team desperately needed like a mage. Even Pikachu with Thunderbolt could have been okay. Delphox was the best. If I here was Inteleon, right? If I'm the world's best Inteleon player and I land 100% of my snipe shots and I never miss, Delphox still does, Inteleon still doesn't do as much as Delphox does here, right? There's just no answer that Inteleon has if the enemy team is going to dive you like this relentlessly. So while Inteleon might be theoretically a better character than Delphox, in this spot, Delphox is way better. But cool. We'll do one more practice round real quick. So if there's any volunteers here, feel free to speak up. I'm gonna say we're gonna end by 7:30. So we're gonna end in 20 minutes. I don't want to keep you guys here for the rest of your night. But we're gonna do one more practice run, and then let's talk about items, and I'll let you guys get on with the rest of your day. Cool. Sam, you want to take control? All right, you got it, Sam. So we're gonna go ahead, and refresh this, and I'm gonna give you a heads up as to how I'm gonna play the game. My team, we don't do it every time. I'm gonna be first pick again, right? We didn't do it every time, but we love playing death ball. We love just running at you and running and gunning. We don't like playing split push. We're running gunners. That's how we play the game, right? You can choose to approach it however you want, but knowing that my first ban, and we're running gunners, we don't really like playing the EX Pokemon. So I'm gonna go ahead and ban one of the EXs myself. I'm gonna ban Zacian. I don't want my team to get Sacred Sworded as we run in. I don't want to have to deal with that, so I'm gonna ban Zacian. Now, knowing what we've talked about, what might you want to ban from your side? Miraidon ban? Agreed. Cool. You still have another ban, so you can still ban whatever you want later on. But cool, you're gonna go ahead and ban that. Now, from first pick, I know that there's only one EX Pokemon left in the game. So if you're gonna give it to me, I'll take it. So I'm not gonna ban Mewtwo. But what's really annoying for me to get, countered by, maybe I'll go ahead and ban out. I'll ban Buzzwole. That's kind of scary if I'm gonna run at you. Cool. So I've banned Buzz. Mewtwo's the only EX left in the game, so you could ban that. I did say I love playing Death Ball, so I saw some Clefable suggestions, but it's up to you. It's up to you, Sam. Or you could ban something else. You want to ban Mewtwo? Not a bad pick. Good pick. Good thing to ban. You know that the other team likes to play things like Clef, but Mewtwo is still Mewtwo. Mewtwo can do whatever you want. So good Mewtwo ban. I'm gonna stay true to my word. I don't care what's in the game. We're Death Ball Central, so we're picking Clef. What's Sam's 1-2? Give me 2 picks here. So you're not. I see someone said don't need to take a healer. Agreed. I think taking a healer here might be a mistake. I'm not gonna pick another one, so you don't want to miss out on being able to pick something else. So I wouldn't go with the healer, but it's up to you. Remember, there's let me pull up this as well. There's some power picks here, but Sam, whenever you're ready, buddy. Let's get 2 picks. Umbreon, Delphox. Okay. So we want to take something strong and something that counters us. Not bad. But we still love run and gunning. So we're going to run and gun. Now, I'm going to immediately point something out though, right? And I mentioned this earlier, is don't get too caught up in what you think the enemy team is going to pick before they pick it, right? I know we're going to go Death Ball, so you're immediately locking in Delphox. But there's no rush, you can pick Delphox later on. Gardevoir is a very similar character to Delphox, so you're not in any rush. I'm not gonna pick it here because I'm gonna stay true to my word and say we're gonna run and gun. So I'm not gonna pick Inteleon, but I think had I picked Inteleon here and I went for a more balanced composition, with picking Delphox this high, you've already locked yourself into a particular way. But I'll keep the ball going. We've got this. I'm gonna pick my defender here. I don't want a defender that's too healing reliant because Delphox can be really annoying. I don't want to pick Crustle because Umbreon's Unite move counters me pretty hard. And in general, Blastoise is a good pick, so I'll lock in the Blastoise here. Just because the team likes to play a certain way doesn't mean they always will. Exactly, right? All right, Sam, let's get another 2 picks. So you already have a defender. You could flex the Umbreon to a healer. So you do need to pick a healer. And traditionally you want to save your last pick for a damage dealer. So I would recommend maybe going with the healer. You need something in the top lane. You already have a range damage dealer, so maybe a melee damage dealer and a healer might be a good idea, or a healer and a flexible pick, and you want to last pick your melee. You have a lot of options here, but we'll see what Sam wants to go with. So you can't go Glaceon. We've already got Glaceon. You're thinking Wiggly and Eldegoss. Okay. We'll lock in the Wiggly and the Eld. And that's okay. I think we might have made an error here, but this is a learning space, so it's okay. Okay, so my team has our we have a potential defender. I need another damage dealer, and I need either a top laner, or I could put Blastoise top, and I need something else in the bottom lane. Let's see. Well, we like to run and gun and just run at your face. Maybe we'll run at your face with a Metagross. Don't really have a lot of damage to deal with it. And now I need either something in the jungle or in the bot lane. I have a Blastoise down there. And we just want to go and take the fight fast. I'll go ahead and we'll take Mew. You know, Mew, Unite, move in, and run in there. Good early game character. And then, all right, what's our last pick here, Sam? And we'll talk about the whole draft here in a second. So we have 3 of those like utility or non-damage dealer type characters. So we really need a damage dealer. We already have a ranged. We don't really have a lot of melee damage unless we flex the or the Umbreon to our damage dealer. So we're gonna go with Dragonite. Okay. Now, I think you did a lot of great things in this draft. I think the Wiggly pick is pretty clever. I didn't hate the Wiggly pick at all. It was already when you have an Umbreon though, right? So remember what I talked about in terms of making sure you have like a balanced team composition. You want to make sure you have 2 XP shares, right, across supporters and defenders, and you don't want to, you know, have too much of one, right? And what we ended up doing is we have 3 XP share characters. So now with this draft, our Umbreon has to be one of our damage dealers. Both of our like official damage dealers are really weak in the early game, right? Delphox, triple stage evolution, not good at the start of the game. Dragonite, really weak in the early game. So we have a weak jungler and at least 1 weak lane. And then now we're also really heavily invested in these supporters and defenders. And we've kind of trapped ourselves, right? And this is and let's give it up for Sam so we get some claps in the chat. I imagine it's very nervous being in that spot. So, you know, no flame, nothing like that. I would give this a 4 out of 10. We definitely need some kind of damage dealer that can kind of address my team running at you. You know, like you have good counters, right? Wiggly was a really smart counter pick. Delphox, you know, we talked about Delphox being good into this style of play, and it'll certainly look good here, but you're just gonna struggle with actually taking things down. It's gonna be really hard to get knockouts. Picking Delphox this early, I could have just went Glaceon and Teleon, and I think at that point you've really cornered yourself in the draft, right? So what I would do is I would swap out either the Eld or the Wiggly for a ranged damage dealer. Especially we've picked Metagross. We want something good in the early game. I would go, I think, a Lowland Ninetales. Good early game character, a second anti-healer that can really solidify our team comp. And it's really, they're gonna run at us. We're gonna shove them away with Blizzard Avalanche. Or even we could get in the A-Veil and try to tank it, right? Both good options. Instead of the Dragon Knight, I don't want to have another weak early game character, right? Delphox, weak early game. Remember what I said? Complement your weak early games with strong early game. So in this spot, I need something stronger in the early game. I want something in the top lane. I see Luca Close Combat. I think Luca Close Combat's a good pick. I don't think that'd be bad at all. Blaziken, I'd be hesitant, right? Blaziken, another triple stage evolution. You're going to be weak in the early game. Certainly wouldn't be too bad, but you really want to make sure you have balance in your team comps, right? So Luca, phenomenal suggestion. What else could be viable in that spot in the top lane? I saw some people saying Dark Bear, another thing pretty weak in the early game. Even Machamp is a triple stage evolution, but at level 1, it's not that bad. So in the laning phase, it's pretty good. You could go for a third ranged character in this spot. Right? It's completely viable to go triple range sometimes, especially if you have really strong frontline. So, we have Wiggly Umbreon. With Umbreon, our healer, we have 2 bulky tanks. Pikachu as a third ranged. Espeon as a third range with stored power could be good. A lot of different options. I like Lucario the best, though. I think Luca would really round this out, and then we'd have a fair fight. Early game, whoever wins the early game, whoever plays better, I think would have a better chance at winning. First pick, getting Clefable in a situation like this is good, but the Delphox gives us a good answer, so it's not that bad. Sylveon, not a bad choice. Instead of Eld, maybe going Intel would be good for early secure. Int's not a bad pick. Inteleon, for sure. You could go Inteleon. Inteleon just because Inteleon is so good. But Inteleon does kind of struggle. Remember, I talked about this draft. If this Delphox or this A9 is an Inteleon in this spot, it's going to struggle. So Inteleon, your use case for Inteleon is to get you out of the early game. And then our Delphox is what's going to carry us in the late game against the Death Ball. So Inteleon could have been a good pick. Regardless, I really appreciate this draft because it's a good learning experience, right? These are the types of drafts you might find yourself in your ranked modes. So if you're in this last pick spot and this is what your team has picked, Dragon Knight is something you want to avoid. You really, in this spot, if these are the 4 in your last pick, your solo queue, definitely here I would want to lock in Lucario. If Mew is not picked, maybe Mew if I'm really confident playing Mew. Even Azu wouldn't be that bad of a choice. Azu might struggle in the late game, but at least it would give you some good early game, That's what you want. Petal Venu, it's pushing it, right? It's kind of weak in the early game. It's pushing it, but not bad. Definitely Inteleon wouldn't be that bad of a pick even considering their draft. Just early game, just focus on getting good early game. Mimikyu, you need level 5, A lot of the all-rounders, I don't think there's a single all-rounder other than maybe Luca and Buzz that's good in the early game, right? Maybe Luca, Buzz, and Machamp are the good early game ones. The other ones, they really need their levels to start scaling. So Mimikyu really needs level 5. Not a bad pick, but until it's 5, it struggles. Azu's another good one. Cool. So we have about 10 minutes left. Let's talk about items. I think you guys all are making really good suggestions for draft. I think the suggestions you're making now are miles ahead from the first one that we did. So even though we had a bit of a blunder in here, I feel confident that at least I've left you guys with some good tools on how to think about draft. Let me hydrate. Recommendations for combining a competitive team. We could talk about that afterwards. Let's talk about items first. So I don't have a slide particularly done with this because I wanted this to be a little bit more interactive at this point now that I've gotten you guys talking. So we don't have time to do it for all 27 or 25 of us, But if anyone has a main or like a Pokemon that they really like, type it in the chat and I can talk about how I would itemize them in a particular draft. And I can't give you builds for everything, but what I can do is kind of give you the thought processes on how to approach it with draft. Gardevoir. Okay, Guard's a good example. Now, Gardevoir's items, right? Let's see, can I do this? So Guard. Now, Guard, very similar to Delphox, very similar to... I not do my own build here. Builder, okay. Here we go. So very similar to Delphox, very similar to A9 and Pikachu, right? Every special attacker in the game is going to run Spoon. No exception, you're running Spoon on basically everything. So now we only have 2 items to pick from here. Chances are Guard's going to be the best person on their team to apply anti-heal, and we need an anti-heal, right? Non-negotiable. If you're in draft, someone on your team hasn't picked an anti-heal, look at the enemy team's draft. If they have no healer and not a lot of self-sustained defenders, maybe you can skip out on it. But for like a character like Guard, you're pretty much going to need it, right? Especially if they have a healer, and in most drafts, enemy team's going to have a healer. So we're already locked in. Now we have 1 spot left, okay? Now, this is the one that I think a lot of people kind of mess up on, right? The default here is Wise Glasses. Gardevoir is a late game healer. Yeah, anti-heal is good for pushing pads, exactly. You want anti-heal, right? Guard's a good late game healer, attacker, sorry. So the Wise Glasses is going to give you a lot of good scaling, right? You might like Wise. Energy Amp, really good on Guard. You could go Energy Amp, right? But I want you to think about where you're going to lane and how you're going to play the game, right? If you're Energy Amp, you really cannot go to the top or bottom path. You pretty much have to go to the central area. Why? Because you can't play a weak early game character down an item and expect to succeed on it, right? If you're lane, I absolutely agree that Choice Specs is a really good pick here. Now, if you have a strong early game defender with you, right? Say you have a Slowbro. Slowbro is really good in the early game. Say you have a Snorlax, right? Something that already has a good last hit, right? Especially if it's someone you're queued up with, you're playing 5-stack. I would then maybe go a little bit more greedy and go the Wise Glasses. But I wouldn't go as far to say I'm going to go Energy Amp. You could, if you have a lot of confidence in your lane partner and their XP share, you can go the Amp. But remember, you want to try to contextualize what you're playing into. And Wise Glasses gives you like the best of both, you know? It makes your Unite stronger, right? Not as much as Amp, but it does, especially late game, and it gives you good early game as well. Amp really only in the jungle, or if you have a lot of faith in your defender to do your last hit. So if you're on comms and your guy's like, I'm gonna pick Snorlax, go ahead. Be greedy and lock in your Energy Amp. You're fine. But Wise Glasses probably the best build. This is probably your best default build as well. But just think about what your negotiable items are and your non-negotiable items are, right? Spoon, non-negotiable. Everyone has to run it. Anti-heal, every team needs an anti-heal. The good anti-heal appliers are the ones that do big AoE damage. Gardevoir is going to need it. You have one flexible item, maybe it's Wise Glasses. Battle item, for something like Guard, it's always going to be Eject. Guard isn't really a character that you can be very flexible on here. So things like these types of characters, I would definitely lean towards Eject. Now, I'll leave you guys with a tidbit. This is gonna be things that you learn as you go and play the game. But if you see the enemy team has Urshifu, and it's likely gonna be Dark Bear, one thing you can do as Gardevoir in this situation, oh, Guard's gone now. Instead of going Eject, go full heal. You can full heal the Urshifu's Unite activation, and it's the only thing that'll keep you alive, right? So if you go with the idea that I'm gonna full heal every Urshield. Things like that, you can definitely switch it up, but there aren't a lot of those in the game. Cool, let's do 2 more Pokemon. I saw Gamma said Slowbro. Let's go with Slowbro. That's a good character. So Slowbro. What's our non-negotiable? What does every Slowbro need to have? I'm asking. This is not a rhetorical question. What do we need to have? EXP share, right? Dead on. Now, this is where things for Slowbro in particular, it gets a little bit complicated. But the difference is personal preference. Okay. I would recommend, generally, you want to have one damage item. Your character is a strong early game mon. You want to take advantage of that strong early game and be able to help your team. So some defender mains are going to stick by choice specs on bro. Others will say spoon. I personally think spoon is better. The difference is so small. All it is when your choice specs is off cooldown, your water gun in the early game might do like an extra 70 damage or something like that, right? But spoon gives you a little bit of HP, and damage items on tanks aren't bad, right? If you're a special attack tank, you almost always want to have either spoon or choice specs, because early game last hitting into another tank that does have it becomes really, really hard, right? So you want to try to have a damage item if you're a special attacker. Physical attackers, different story, right? But you don't have to. And then third item, I would say focus band is solid, but right, if you see a Delphox on the other team, if you see a Gardevoir on the other team, something that's going to have a lot of anti-healing, I might opt to go Resonant Guard instead. I think Resonant Guard, really, really good, really good tank item in general, and shielding isn't mitigated by anti-healing, so that's really good. I wouldn't recommend going another damage item, so it'd be the Resonant Guard focus. If you're really feeling like you have a read on how the enemy team plays, you could look to go Buddy Barrier. If you know the other team's gonna dive, maybe they have double Speedster. Buddy's not a bad choice even on Slowbro, but Resonant Guard is gonna do a similar kind of idea. Your teammates near you, you're gonna give them a shield, you're good. So that was a good suggestion. Let's do one more. I saw Meowscarada. Let's do a Meowscarada as well. We can talk about more. I do want to give you guys the opportunity to leave. I don't want to keep you here, but let's do Meow real quick. Now, this is a more complicated one, right? So if we're going into the path, if we're going top or bottom, right? Likely top if we are laning, we want to stack. Any speedster in the game that's going to be laning, they're not going to do really good at just one-on-one fighting, In the early game, the speedsters tend to be a little bit weaker. Meowscarada is a good last-hitting tool in Leafage, but all of the speedsters in the game, in the early game, they're just not good at just trading directly, right? So for that reason, you want to play the lane out in a way where you can stack. So definitely want to stack. I would definitely say Razor Claw, right? Again, most speedsters in the game, all of them rely on crits in some kind of way, other than Dodrio, I think. All of them have a lot of moves that they can activate. So almost all of them I would recommend Razor. Maybe Zoro is one where I wouldn't. So Razor attack weight's a good foundation here for Meow. And then you have options for your third item, right? Meow, let's assume it's Flower Trick double team, right? If you were playing Night Slash, I think you could maybe Scope or Muscle, but Flower Trick double team, not a big auto attacker. I think Charging Charm, really good pick here. I think Floatstone, not bad. Here's a little tech that I'll give you guys, right? If you're playing Speedster and you know the other team has a Speedster, or in general, you're playing into a lot of Speedsters on the other team, a Focus Band will completely win you like 50% of your matchups, guaranteed. Because what Speedsters do is they like to all in, right? And if you go into an all-in battle and one side has the Focus Band, you're always going to win the 1v1. So this is something I want you guys to keep in mind. If you're playing against a Speedster as a damage dealer, whether you're any damage dealer in the game, even if you're a Pikachu, right? I don't care what you are, right? If you're playing into double Speedster and you feel like you're not going to be able to handle it, right? Especially something like Talonflame, Dodrio, like these all-in speedsters. Leafeon's one where I would maybe avoid the focus because Leafeon has a lot of poke. But into Talon, Zeraora, Zoroark, add in that focus band. You're gonna win that 1v1. It's gonna be completely unexpected. And you're gonna catch them off guard. You think I understand why, but can you explain why focus band will play into speedster so well? I'll give you an example with Talonflame, okay? Because I realized this about a year ago into Talonflame. And if some of you watched very carefully in UCS, you'll know I would put on focus band as Eldegoss into Talonflame. Is speedsters, once they go in, they have a very tough time getting out, right? Talonflame, it's gonna fly, flame charge, and it has to ult to get out, right? Likely what they're trying to do is they're trying to get that knockout there and then if you're a squishy character, right? Talonflame is hoping that after Brave Bird, Aerial Ace, and a couple auto attacks, you're dead or it's dead, right? So in that moment, if you have the focus band and you can get the healing off of it, not every game, I'm not gonna say you need to do it every single game, but if the other team is like Talonflame, Meowscarada, and I'm playing a Zeraora, if I have focus band on, I'll take every 1v1 against them. They're gonna have no tools after they use their engage, after he flies, right, and flame charges, he has nothing left. Just use all your moves, you'll have an additional resource and you'll win that 1v1. It's a little bit of a just trust me, but just trust me. Like into speedsters specifically, focus band's really good. Now, into attackers, right, what you don't want to do is if the enemy team has an Inteleon or a Desi or a Delphox, you don't want to have that focus band tech on, because you're going to get it triggered by an Inteleon snipe shot, by a Desi shackle, and it's going to go on cooldown and it's going to feel really bad. Healing from focus is dependent on how much damage you take? No. Healing from focus is dependent on how much missing HP you have. So focus band, when you trigger the focus band, you trigger it when you get below a quarter HP. Every second after that for the next 3 seconds, right? Yeah, 3 seconds, you're going to heal 12% of your missing HP. So as you're taking damage, like your first focus band tick will be a lot, but if you take damage after that, you'll get another really big tick, right? And that's where sometimes it feels like, oh my God, focus band did so much versus focus band maybe didn't do as much. But cool, that's another tech. I know we're at 7:30, so I'm gonna do one Pokemon because I know all of you guys are talking about supports and I really want to do a support for you as well. And then we'll wrap things up and I'll let you go. Maybe in the future I advertise this as a 2-hour thing because I feel bad for keeping you guys this long now. But cool. Blissey, what's our non-negotiable item, guys? Real quick. What do we always have to go on Blissey? XP share, exactly. Okay, perfect. This is a really interesting one, right? And this is one I make a lot of variations on when I'm playing solo queue, when I'm playing competitive. This one's kind of not actually something you need to go every game, but I would say in draft, 80% of the time you're going to be buddy barrier. The only time you don't want to go buddy barrier is if the other team has Umbreon, right? You don't want to give the other team's Umbreon an even more advantage for countering your Unite move with their Unite move. So this is what the default Blissey build looks like, right? It's stacking, buddy, XP share. But if the other team has an Umbreon, I would swap this out for a focus band immediately, right? I wouldn't play Resonant Guard because Blissey doesn't do enough damage consistently to proc it. And then the stacking specs, if you are laning with another character that's stacking and maybe the other team has like some really annoying anti-stacking Pokemon, say they have like Mamoswine, Pikachu, A9, like a draft where you look at the draft and you're like, my God, I don't want to stack into that, right? Your stacking specs can go Energy Amp, not a bad pick. The cooldown reduction actually does help a lot for soft boiled, not bad. I would only go Amp if you have a good ult target, right? So if you have something that can dive in, like a speedster like Zoroark or Dodrio, or an all-rounder like Buzz or Garchomp, something that really takes advantage of your Unite move and it can bowling ball get the damage, I would go Amp. Otherwise, I would go Wise Glasses. Not enough people talk about it, right? But if you're into Umbreon and you can't stack and you don't want to stack, Wise is completely fine. 2 stacks of special attack specs is about as good as Wise. So that's fine. The final tech, and this is a little bit more is a little bit more deep, and this is only draft. I would only ever do this in draft, but I think Cursed Incense is something you can also consider on Blissey. If your team hasn't locked in any anti-healers and you need an anti-healer, like say you're playing into something like Clefable and without anti-heal you cannot survive, I would go Cursed Incense, and you can apply it with your Egg Bombs and you can apply it with your Boosted Auto. Right, Blissey's Boosted Auto charges automatically, so you don't need to worry about that. And I would use your Egg Bomb as a mini Delphox ult to apply anti-heal. Like my team is going in on someone, let me X speed to make sure I'm in range to Egg Bomb and Egg Bomb the person they're going on, so I can get some anti-healing applied. I've done this in tournament games. I've seen other Blissey players do this in tournament games as well. 39 special attack is the same that you get baseline with Wise Glasses, right? And it's the same that you get with like 1 stack of special attack specs, right? So if you're playing into a comp that's really hard to stack into, if you were to get 0 stacks, special Curse Incense is actually better than special attack specs at 0 stacks, right? So from that metric, all you're doing is getting yourself an anti-healer right away. But that's what I'm saying. Like, try to look at everything that's going on, right? And remember those questions that you want to ask yourself, right? And you'll have a recording of this, or you can take a picture or write it down. But try to answer those questions. And if you're not able to answer those questions with your Pokemon's picks, can you address any of them in your items, right? We have weak lanes. Okay, maybe I consider going choice specs on my attacker. So my laning, I have a better last hitting opportunity. We have no anti-healing. My defender supporter, they'll go anti-heal. It doesn't matter if it's not the best use case for anti-heal. Any anti-heal is better than no anti-heal. But yeah, some things you can solve with items, some things you can't. I think that's a good way to look at it. And let's see, question, is Comfy with Incense and Magical Leaf a viable build? Yeah, for sure. I've played a lot of Curse Incense Comfy. It's good. You're gonna be diving in with someone anyways. If they don't have a way to anti-heal, you should have the anti-heal. Shed Ninja Doll for Blissey out. Now, here's another thing. This is something that you'll just realize from playing a lot, is if you're stacking on a support special attack specs, you're gonna need X speed. Otherwise you're just not gonna be able to get your stacks against competent opponents, right? The way in competitive, the way I look at it is every X speed cooldown is 1 or 2 stacks. So if you're stacking, you need the X speed. If you're not stacking, Shed Ninja Doll on a supporter can be good if the enemy team has something good to counter. So they have Icicle Spears, they have a Mimikyu, something you can reliably doll, it's good. Otherwise, go eject or just stick with the X speed. 1 curse item enough, anti-healer, the whole team, or do you want more than 1? 1 is sufficient. More than 1 is good if the other team has a lot of healing. So into Clef, I would try to have 2. Into Blissey, I would try to have 2. Into every other type of comp, 1 is probably okay. 2 is better if you can fit it. Sometimes you can't fit it. But cool. I'm gonna wrap things up here, guys. I do wanna once again thank you all for making the time and spending an extra 45 minutes with me. If I kept anyone longer and you had other commitments, I'm truly sorry. I really just like this game too much and I can't stop talking about it. If you feel like you had questions and they went unanswered, feel free to send me a DM. Any one of you here within the next 15-20 minutes, you have any questions about anything Pokemon Unite related, send me a DM. I'll try to answer them all by tonight. If not, I'll get to them tomorrow. And this recording will be up so you can go back and watch it at any time. I'll do something like this in the future as well. And just as a heads up, I am going to be repurposing some of these slides for future content on my YouTube channel. So you guys got a sneak peek into it, but I will do a more cohesive video as well. And you guys gave me a lot of good ideas. So thank you all for joining me. I think one of the things I could gather that you guys are really craving is a video about counter picks and specific matchups. So if you feel like that's something that'd be helpful, I might do a video on it, or we might do another session like this in the future if there's enough interest as well. But cool, I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you so much for reaching out. If you want one-on-one coaching and you're really interested in it, between now and next week, I can give you a coupon. I don't know, let's say 25% off. If any of you want to book one-on-one coaching, send me a DM. I'll make a custom coupon just for you, and I'll give you an extra 25% off as a thank you for you coming to this class. Other than that, I hope I see you guys in my streams, in the YouTube comments, wherever you see me. Thank you guys for supporting me, and I'll see you guys next time.